Welcome to our deep dive. We're diving into the mastery of self today by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited to really extract some seriously practical tools for self-mastery from this book.
Yeah.
Think of it as a guide to navigating life's challenges with more awareness and a lot less suffering.
You know what's fascinating about Ruiz Jr.'s approach?
Yeah.
Is that he doesn't just, throw out these, feel-good platitudes.
Right.
He gives you actionable steps that you can actually use
Totally.
in your everyday life.
It's like he's handing us a toolbox.
Exactly.
Saying, here's how you build a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And he starts with this really intriguing concept.
Let's see.
The idea that we're all living in a shared dream, what he calls the dream of the planet.
It's a powerful idea when you think about it. He's
Yeah.
essentially saying that your perceptions and intentions actually shape the reality that you experience.
Oh, wow.
And all of our individual realities together form this collective dream that we're all a part of.
So instead of feeling like we're just passive observers,
Right.
we are active participants in creating our own reality.
Yes.
And the reality of the world around us.
Exactly.
It's kind of trippy when you think about it that way.
It is.
Like we're all contributing to this collective.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And Ruiz Jr. uses this great analogy to illustrate this point. Imagine life is like a carnival.
Okay.
We're all here to enjoy the rides, right?
Yeah.
But how often do we get so caught up in the lines,
Totally.
the crowds, or even just the anticipation?
I'm like getting the tickets.
Yeah.
Or, making sure everybody's there and all together.
About all logistics.
That we miss out on actually enjoying the ride itself.
It's so true.
I know.
It's like we're so focused on the destination that we forget to appreciate the journey.
The journey is really where it's at.
Right.
Like that's the whole point.
And that's where the idea of the smoky mirror comes in.
Okay, the smoky mirror.
It's this character that Ruiz Jr. uses, a shaman, who teaches us how to see through the fog
Like that.
of our limiting beliefs and attachments.
Okay, so the fog is like all that stuff that we...
It's all the stuff
Yeah.
that clouds our perception and prevents us from...
Seeing clearly.
seeing clearly.
Okay.
The smoky mirror helps us to question those beliefs and see ourselves and the world more clearly.
So it's like the smoky mirror is giving us a new pair of glasses
Exactly.
to see the world with.
A new lens.
Helping us to recognize those thought patterns and behaviors that might be holding us back.
Precisely.
It's calling us out on our BS.
Yes.
In a loving way.
In a compassionate way.
Yeah.
And once we start to see those patterns,
Yeah.
we can start to break free from them.
Okay, so how do we start to see those patterns?
Well, that leads us to another key concept in the book,
Oh.
Domestication. Now,
Domestication.
we're
Before you picture...
like house training a puppy.
Right. How's trading a puppy?
Yeah.
Ruiz Jr. is using this term to describe how we internalize external ideas and rules.
Even when they no longer serve us.
Interesting.
He illustrates this with a simple but powerful example. A boy being told he has to finish all the soup his grandmother made,
Boy,
even if he's full.
you got to eat it all.
You got to eat it all. It
Yeah.
seems like such a small thing.
Yeah.
But it highlights how we're conditioned to accept certain beliefs and behaviors
Right.
without questioning whether they're truly beneficial.
It's like being on autopilot.
It is.
Yeah.
And this domestication can have a huge impact on our lives,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
leading us down paths that don't align with our true selves.
So it's like we end up living someone else's life
Yeah.
instead of our own.
Ruiz Jr. even shares a story about a friend who went to law school to please his family,
Oh.
despite hating it.
Oh, no.
It took years for him to break free and find happiness as an author and teacher.
Wow. So he was living like the opposite of his dream,
Yes.
his nightmare.
Essentially.
Wow. His story is a great example of how we can get trapped by societal expectations and the need to please others,
Yeah.
recognizing those external pressures.
Yeah.
And having the courage to break free is essential for self-mastery.
It is. It's about having the courage to say no to the things that don't align with your values.
Even if it means disappointing other people.
Even if it means disappointing other people.
Yeah, this idea really resonated with me because I think we've all had moments where we've felt that pressure to conform, to follow a certain path, even if it didn't feel quite right.
Right. Like you're wearing a costume.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're trying to fit into a mold that wasn't made for you.
Precisely. And you have the power to step away from those expectations that don't feel right to you.
It's like taking off the costume and finally being yourself.
Yeah. You're not obligated to live someone else's dream.
Right. You're here to live your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this ties into another key point Ruiz Jr. makes.
Okay.
Domestication often leads to attachment.
Attachment.
He uses the example of a soccer fan
Okay.
to illustrate this. At first, you just enjoy the game, but then you get attached to a particular team.
You're like, go team.
Right.
Yeah.
And their wins and losses start to feel personal.
Like it's your win or loss.
Exactly. Your identity gets entangled with the team's performance.
You're like, we won.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and drama.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly your mood for the entire week hinges on whether your team won or lost.
Exactly.
It's like your whole life depends on it.
Right. And taken to the extreme, this kind of attachment can have serious consequences.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Think about those tragic real-life examples where fans have resorted to violence.
Yeah.
Or even suicide over a game.
Wow.
It highlights the danger of confusing our identity with things outside of ourselves.
Yeah, it's like we're giving our power away to something that's ultimately external and beyond our control.
Right.
So we've talked about how deeply ingrained these patterns of domestication and attachment can be.
Mm-hmm.
But Ruiz Jr. offers hope.
He does.
He says the key to breaking free is unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
Yes.
He contrasts unconditional love with conditional love, which is often the basis of domestication and attachment.
Right.
Conditional love says, I'll love you if you do this or that, if you behave in a certain way, if you meet my expectations.
It's transactional.
It is. It's like a contract.
Yeah.
Unconditional love, on the other hand, sees the inherent worth and divinity in every person,
Regardless of.
regardless of their actions or beliefs.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It is. It's a high bar, but it's also incredibly freeing.
So it's about recognizing that everyone is on their own journey, making their own choices, and learning their own lessons. It doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior, but rather choosing to see beyond those actions and recognize the shared humanity in everyone.
It's about seeing the spark of divinity
Oh, I like that.
in every being.
Yeah, that we're all connected in some way.
Yeah, we're all interconnected.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we cultivate that kind of unconditional love? Especially when we're dealing with people who are, maybe not behaving in the most loving ways themselves.
That's where forgiveness comes in.
Forgiveness. Okay.
Ruiz Jr. suggests that forgiveness is a powerful path to cultivating this kind of unconditional love.
So it's not just about letting the other person off the hook.
No, it's not about condoning their actions.
Right.
It's about freeing yourself from the resentment and anger that's weighing you down.
It's like releasing a poison.
It is. It's about recognizing that holding on to those negative emotions is only hurting you.
It's not doing them any harm.
Exactly.
Yeah, think about how freeing it would be to let go of those old hurts, especially from loved ones.
Especially from the people we're closest to.
Yeah, that's what forgiveness allows you to do. It's a direct path to unconditional love.
It allows us to release the grip of past hurts and move forward with a lighter heart.
And a more open heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that holding on to resentment and anger only hurts ourselves in the end.
So forgiveness is really a gift.
It is.
To ourselves as much as it is to the other person.
Exactly. It doesn't mean condoning what happened or forgetting the past.
Right.
But rather choosing to release the negative energy that we've been carrying around.
Like hitting the reset button.
Yeah. And when we operate from a place of unconditional love and forgiveness, it transforms our interactions with others. We can disagree respectfully, maintain our own boundaries, and still contribute to creating a more peaceful dream of the planet.
That makes sense. It's like shifting from a mindset of scarcity and separation to one of abundance and connection.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, it's easier said than done right.
It is. It takes practice.
How do we handle those moments when our buttons get pushed?
Yeah.
When we feel those old patterns of reaction bubbling up? Like, how do we stay in that space of unconditional love when someone's like, really pushing our buttons?
That's a great question. And that's where self-awareness comes in.
Self-awareness.
Okay. One of the key insights Ruiz Jr. offers is that no one else is responsible for how you feel. Your emotions are your own, and you have the power to choose how you respond to them.
That's a powerful reminder. It's so easy to fall into the trap of blaming others for our emotional state, but ultimately we're the ones in the driver's seat.
Exactly. And to help us understand this process, Ruiz Jr. introduces the concept of the parasite and the ally. The parasite represents that inner critic, that voice in your head that's constantly putting you down, telling you you're not good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough.
Oh, I know that voice all too well. It can be so loud and persistent sometimes.
It can be, but it's important to remember that it's not who you truly are. It's just a part of you, a voice that's been shaped by your past experiences and conditioning. The ally, on the other hand, represents that inner champion, that voice that believes in you, encourages you, and reminds you of your strengths and potential.
So it's like we have these two opposing forces within us, and we get to choose which one we listen to.
Precisely. And Ruiz Jr. emphasizes that neither of these voices is your true self. You are the awareness that is witnessing these thoughts and emotions. You have the power to choose which voice you align with.
So it's like we're the referee in the boxing match between the parasite and the ally.
Exactly. It's not about silencing either voice, but rather recognizing that they're both part of you and choosing which one you want to empower.
So we can choose to give the microphone to the ally more often.
Precisely. And the more you practice listening to and aligning with your ally, the stronger that voice will become.
It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. And Ruiz Jr. shares a great example of this in the book, talking about his friend and teaching partner, Heather Ash Amara. She was able to reframe a challenging childhood story, shifting from a feeling of victimhood to one of gratitude.
That's amazing. How did she do that?
She realized that although her childhood experiences were difficult, they also taught her resilience, strength, and empathy. She chose to focus on the positive lessons she learned rather than dwelling on the pain.
It's like finding the silver lining in the cloud.
Precisely. It's not about denying or minimizing difficult experiences, but rather choosing to see them through a different lens, one that empowers us rather than limits us.
It reminds me of that classic saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We may not be able to control the events that happen to us, but we can control how we respond to them.
Exactly. And that's a core principle of self-mastery, recognizing your triggers and using your will to respond consciously rather than reacting automatically from a place of fear or anger.
So instead of just reacting on autopilot, we're taking a step back and choosing a more intentional response.
Right. It's about becoming aware of those habitual patterns of reaction and choosing a different path.
It's like when you catch yourself mindlessly scrolling through social media for hours. You're not really present, you're just reacting to external stimuli. By becoming more aware, you can break those cycles of automatic reaction and start making choices that are aligned with your true self.
It's about reclaiming your power and becoming the conscious creator of your own experience.
That sounds amazing. But how do we actually do that? How do we cultivate that awareness in those moments when we're feeling triggered or overwhelmed?
One practical technique Ruiz Jr. suggests for cultivating this awareness is the contrary warrior practice.
The contrary warrior practice. What is that?
It involves intentionally doing small things differently for a few days, something as simple as brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand or taking a different route to work.
Interesting. So it's about shaking up your routine to break those patterns of automatic behavior.
Exactly. It's about waking yourself up and becoming more conscious of the choices you make on autopilot. It's a fun way to bring a little more playfulness and curiosity into your daily life.
I love that. It's like
Yeah.
a little experiment to see how much of our lives we're living on autopilot.
Exactly. And it helps you to develop that muscle of awareness so you can start to notice those automatic patterns in other areas of your life as well.
So it's not just about brushing your teeth differently. It's about becoming more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in all aspects of our lives.
Exactly. It's about becoming the observer of your own experience.
That sounds really powerful. He also outlines an awareness skills exercise, which sounds really cool. Can you tell us a little more about that?
It's a simple but effective practice for grounding yourself in the present moment.
Okay, I'm all for more presence. What does it involve?
It involves focusing on your breath, noticing the sensations in your body, and paying attention to the sights, sounds, and smells around you.
So it's like a mini meditation.
It is. It's about bringing your attention to the here and now and noticing all the subtle details of your experience.
It sounds like a great way to bring yourself back to the present moment when you're feeling overwhelmed or lost in thought.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a place of unconscious reaction to conscious awareness. And that awareness is essential for navigating the complexities of the dream of the planet. Speaking of which, one thing that really struck me in The Mastery of Self was the way Ruiz Jr. uses real-life examples to illustrate his points, like the devastating tsunami in the Indian Ocean and the terrorist attacks on 9/11.
Those were definitely powerful examples. I remember reading those sections and feeling really impacted by the way he connected those events back to the idea of self-mastery.
He contrasts the natural disaster, which was beyond human control, with the deliberate acts of violence which stemmed from human choices and beliefs.
He makes a really interesting point about how both events caused immense suffering, but the terrorist attacks were a direct result of human hatred and anger.
He argues that those who commit acts of violence are often the most domesticated and attached people. They've lost sight of their own humanity and the humanity of others.
So he's saying that their actions are coming from a place of deep fear and insecurity.
Exactly. They're so consumed by their own beliefs and attachments that they can't see beyond them. It's like they're trapped in a nightmare of their own creation.
It makes you wonder, what can we do to help people break free from those kinds of limiting beliefs and see the world through a more compassionate lens? What can we do to foster more peace and understanding, both within ourselves and in the world around us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Ruiz Jr. suggests that awareness is the first step. By becoming aware of our own domestication and attachments, we can start to challenge those beliefs and choose a different path.
It's like that saying, the unexamined life is not worth living. We have to be willing to look inward and question our assumptions if we want to grow and evolve.
And that willingness to question is what sets a master of self apart. They're constantly observing their thoughts and actions, identifying those patterns that no longer serve them, and choosing to break free.
It's about taking responsibility for your own happiness and well-being, rather than blaming others or external circumstances. You have the power to create the life you want, but it starts with taking ownership of your inner world.
And that responsibility extends to how you treat others. When you come from a place of unconditional love and acceptance, you create a ripple effect that can positively impact the entire dream of the planet.
It's like we're all interconnected, and our individual actions can have a profound impact on the collective.
Exactly. It's like we're all part of one big tapestry, and each thread contributes to the overall beauty and complexity of the design.
I love that analogy. It's a beautiful reminder that we're all in this together. And the choices we make each day can either contribute to a more harmonious world or perpetuate the cycle of suffering.
But what about those times when we're faced with difficult people or situations? How do we maintain our sense of peace and awareness when we're feeling triggered or challenged?
It can feel like a constant uphill battle sometimes, trying to stay centered and peaceful when the world is throwing all sorts of curveballs our way.
It's definitely an ongoing practice. It's not like you reach a certain level of self-mastery and then you're good to go. It's a continuous process of growth and evolution.
So how do we keep showing up for that process, even when it feels challenging? Or when we feel like we're backsliding?
Well, one thing that Ruiz Jr. emphasizes is the importance of taking those practical tools and techniques we've been discussing and actually putting them into practice. It's not enough to just intellectually understand these concepts. You have to embody them, right? Yeah. It's like learning to play a musical instrument. You can read all the books and watch all the videos, but until you actually pick up the instrument and start practicing, you're not going to make any progress.
Exactly. And Ruiz Jr. offers a variety of practices to help you do just that. We talked about the contrary warrior practice and the awareness skills exercise earlier, but he also suggests using grounding mantras to help you stay centered in those moments of challenge.
Oh yeah, mantras are super helpful for me. I find that they really help to shift my energy and bring me back to a place of peace when I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
They can be incredibly powerful. And one mantra he specifically recommends is, I am enough. I have enough. I do enough.
I love that mantra. It's so simple, but it speaks volumes. It's like a direct challenge to all those negative thoughts and beliefs that tell us we're not good enough or that we're not doing enough.
It is powerful because it speaks directly to that feeling of not enoughness that so many of us struggle with. It's a reminder that you are inherently worthy, regardless of your accomplishments, possessions, or external validation. It's like an antidote to that inner critic. That voice is always telling us we need to do more, be more, have more.
And speaking of the inner critic, Ruiz Jr. also offers a really interesting perspective on goal setting.
Oh, I'm curious to hear this because I love setting goals, but I sometimes get caught up in that trap of feeling like I'm not successful enough if I don't achieve them.
He cautions against setting goals from a place of lack or a need to prove yourself.
So it's not about trying to fill a void.
Exactly. Instead, he encourages you to set goals that are aligned with your authentic self. Goals that make you feel joyful and fulfilled, rather than goals that are based on external pressures or a sense of deficiency.
So it's more about the journey than the destination.
It's about aligning your goals with your values and your passions, and trusting that the process of pursuing those goals will bring you growth and fulfillment regardless of the outcome.
I love that. It takes the pressure off of having to achieve a specific outcome. and allows you to simply enjoy the process of growing and expanding.
And he also encourages you to trust the process, let go of your attachment to specific outcomes, and have faith that life will unfold as it should.
It's like surrendering to the wisdom of the universe.
Yeah.
And trusting that you're exactly where you need to be in this moment.
Exactly. And Ruiz Jr. illustrates this beautifully with the story of a friend who went through a painful divorce.
Oh, wow. That's a really tough experience to go through.
It was. But ultimately, it led him to a path of greater happiness and fulfillment.
So even though it was painful in the moment, it ultimately served a higher purpose.
Exactly. It wasn't what he had planned or hoped for, but it turned out to be exactly what he needed.
That's a powerful reminder that sometimes what we think we want isn't necessarily what's best for us in the long run. And it speaks to the importance of trusting that even when things don't go according to plan, there's a greater wisdom at play.
And that's where the practice of surrender comes in. It's about letting go of your need to control everything and trusting that life is unfolding perfectly, even in the midst of challenges. Which brings us back to the dream of the planet. If we can each learn to master ourselves, to become more aware, more loving, and more forgiving, imagine the impact that could have on the collective dream we're all weaving together.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it? A world where people are living from a place of authenticity, compassion, and connection, rather than fear, judgment, and separation.
And it all starts with each one of us taking responsibility for our own thoughts, actions, and beliefs. It starts with choosing to wake up from the dream of domestication and step into the fullness of who we truly are.
This has been such a rich and rewarding deep dive into the mastery of self. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of these profound teachings, but I hope this has given you a taste of the wisdom and practical tools that Ruiz Jr. offers and inspired you to continue exploring these ideas in your own life.
I agree. It's been a pleasure diving into this book with you, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery and mastery.
Absolutely. And if you're ready to continue exploring these ideas, I encourage you to dive into the mastery of self yourself. You won't regret it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living your most authentic life.